Welcome to the Jones Gallery Lecture Series. I'm Sarah Jones, the curator here at the gallery. We're a contemporary art gallery based in St. John, New Brunswick, and our mandate is to present work by contemporary Atlantic Canadian artists. But art education is important to us also, and we think that art history is something that should be free and accessible and open to everyone. And to that end, we host public lectures here at the gallery and produce videos like the one you're watching here. The entire lecture series is generously supported by the Sheila Hugh Mackay Foundation. And today's video is brought to you by Frank, Angela, Clint, and Lisa. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy. If you would also like to support our efforts, you can do so by donating at jonesgallery.ca/arthistory. Today we'll be discussing one of Manet's paintings. This one is from 1862. It's called Music in the Tuileries. And as you can see, it shows a group of Parisians, many Parisians congregating in the famous garden in Paris in the Tuileries. They're outdoors, they're enjoying the day. It's a scene of urban leisure that we are observing. Before I take a dive into the painting itself, I would like to talk to you about the context in which Manet created this work in the early 1860s. This work, when it was the Music in the Tuileries, when it was exhibited at a gallery called the Gallery Martinet, it caused great consternation among the Parisian art-going public and the art critics. The art critics were scandalized by many aspects of this painting, and it's important to understand what Manet was doing, or what he was pushing against in the French artistic establishment that caused this kind of feeling of furor, really, and anger at the level of daring and the rule, and at his rule breaking, essentially. To understand really the impact that Manet's work, this one, the Music in the Tuileries, but then also especially his subsequent work, like the Déjeuner sur l'herbe, the Luncheon on the Grass, and then Olympia as well, to understand the impact and the stir, like I said, that it caused, we need to know a little bit about the French academic painting and the way that French art and culture was structured in the 1700s and the 1800s. And what I'm showing you here is this is an etching of a scene from the Salon. This is in the late 1700s. The Salon was an annual, and then sometimes it would happen every second year as well. So anyway, at least yearly art exhibition that was orchestrated by the French Academy of Art. And it was the French Academy is essentially the kind of the official, the state-sponsored artistic academy where artists would be schooled in the French academic style. The academy would also orchestrate this salon, like I said, that happened usually yearly. Artists would submit work to the salon in hopes of being selected. The jury was made up of members of the academy, and so the salon was a way of maintaining very direct control over the standards, what they viewed as kind of the standards of French art, or what French art should be. And it was enormously popular. Thousands upon thousands of people attended the salon. It was an enormously galvanizing moment for an artist's career to be accepted into the salon. There would be certain artists that would be beloved of the academy, or that were masters of this French academic style, like the one we're looking at here. This is Jean-Jacques Louis David's painting called The Oath of the Horatii. This is much earlier. This is about a century earlier than Manet's painting, but I wanted to show you what I mean by French academic painting, and then how, once you understand that, then you can see how Manet's Music in the Tuileries is flipping this idea completely on its head. So David is kind of the powerhouse of the French neoclassical movement. Ideal academic art, kind of the pinnacle of academic art, would be either religious or history painting. So here we're looking at a history painting. This is a scene from Roman history, like I said, called the Oath of the Horatii. The story itself isn't important, but essentially it's three sons kind of pledging fealty to the father, pledging fealty to the empire, and then off they go to battle. And that's the moment that we're seeing here. There had to be some kind of didactic or moral lesson in history or religious painting, and David is really good at this. And there's nothing subtle about David's kind of moralizing or didactic message here. It's like I said, it's about bravery and being kind of stolid in the face of adversity, and kind of patriarchal systems, and loyal to the father, loyal to your country, these kind of ideals. So the idea was that you could look at this painting, or the public could observe this painting, and would learn from the interaction, and it would leave a better person. There was also ideally a formal composition structure, so that the scene made sense. You can see that David has it arranged in kind of a frieze-like. The figures are arranged in like a frieze, so we can read it from left to right. We see the brothers and the father, then the family of the warriors who are about to embark for battle. They are fitting very carefully and precisely within the architecture, so you can see that each grouping is lumped beneath one of the arches. So there are three arches kind of delineating the three groups. The vanishing point is right at the hands of the father with the sword. So all the elements are kind of coalescing together to move forward this central idea. Notice too that the finish is very carefully rendered here. So if we lean in and observed David's paintings very carefully, you had a magnifying glass, the surface would look like glass. It would be completely smooth, and so you can't see any evidence of brush strokes. So there's no what's called impasto technique here. So no kind of thick daubing of the paint. This is very carefully built up, glaze upon glaze upon glaze, for a very highly finished and highly refined surface. So this, if you can remember this, keep this in your mind, this is the pinnacle, the ideal of French academic art. And these elements of David's painting is what they are trying to preserve through the establishment of the academy and then the training system there, but then also crucially through that exhibition structure, through the salon. And as I mentioned, the salon was enormously popular, and so throngs and throngs of Parisians would come and see the work by artists like David. The salon was very affordable for the public to attend. It was about, on a regular day, to buy admission, it was about the pay of like a day's wage for a laborer. So it was affordable to everyone, essentially. There were free days, and that's this cartoon by Daumier that we're observing here, that on the free days it was very, very, very packed and a little warm. I think this woman is complaining. The salon and these exhibitions also gave rise to the French art critic. And so you can see this here, this kind of pompous figure who's meandering through the exhibition and through the salon with his notepad. And then the obsequious artists surrounding him, trying to ingratiate themselves to him. And this was entirely new also, that the critic could have power and opinions when his thoughts on the new work, or on an artist kind of the artist production would be published in journals and newspapers. And just for good measure, here is another cartoon by Daumier. And as I was mentioning that if one had a magnifying glass, you could lean in and you could, for David's paintings, you could see that every aspect of the painting was highly, highly finished. And that's what these two gentlemen are doing here, these kind of two amateur connoisseurs of art. And one is saying that when you lean in, you get close enough, you can really discover that the quality of the work is good. So that was the expectation. That was the measure of good art, as it were, that you could, that the minutia was very carefully captured and very, very carefully rendered. And so you can imagine these two men leaning in with their magnifying glass to observe the details on the helmet of David's Horatii brothers and being very satisfied that the quality was good. In the later 1800s, kind of, well, mid late 1800s, you know what, I could just say the dates, the 1850s, 1860s, 1870s, kind of that time period, the culture minister, kind of France was this gentleman. His name is, he's the Count Nieuwkerk. And he ruled the academy and the salon with an iron fist. He was kind of the ultimate arbiter of taste in France at this time. And he was very much a proponent of history and religious painting in the mode of David. So all of those ideas that I mentioned, Nieuwkerk cares very much about those and preserving those and not allowing French art to stray whatsoever from those ideas. If an artist did stray, or there was too much experimentation, or if it didn't kind of, if there was a history painting that didn't impart a solid enough didactic message, their work could be refused, again, under kind of the auspices or under the direction of Count Nieuwkerk, and then filtering down through the jury of the salon. The work would be refused by the salon jury. And this was devastating for an artist's career. If the work had been previously sold to a client might demand refund. And so here we see a very distraught artist whose work has been refused. You can see the words refusé on the canvas itself, and he's put his foot through it in anger here and dismay. So, given now that you have a little bit of understanding of what French academic art was expected to be, let's return once again to Manet's Music in the Tuileries. And I think maybe now you can look at this just with a bit of fresh eyes, and you can see why this painting caused such an uproar when Manet exhibited at, like I said, at the Galerie Martinet. This painting was not shown at the Salon, but this subsequent year, Manet's subsequent paintings that come right after the Music in the Tuileries, like I said, the Déjeuner sur l'herbe and the Olympia, all kinds of ruckus to do with the Salon, which I'll talk about in later videos. But it's all still part of this broader system. So, like I said, we have a very busy crowd, a large crowd of Parisians gathering in the park, in the Tuileries, in central Paris. And as I said, this is a scene of leisure, of urban leisure. We have gentlemen in top hats and kind of their dark black cloaks or jackets. There are women seated at kind of tables and chairs, children playing. We see parasols, all underneath the shading of the trees in the Tuileries. Manet's work, to understand Manet, we need to understand a little bit of Baudelaire as well. And Baudelaire was a French thinker and French writer who was a contemporary of Manet. And Baudelaire espoused the idea of modernity. Modernity was what was driving these kind of avant-garde thinkers in the 1860s and 1870s. And Baudelaire was adamant that modernity was transient and fleeting and contingent, and that that it was moving at this fast pace, and it was worthy of study and worthy of fascination and worthy of art. And Manet agreed with that. And so thinking about that, just this phrase, modernity is the transient, the fleeting, the contingent. And if we look at the music in the Tuileries, that's indeed what we're seeing here. So this is a scene of modernity. This is not a history or a religious painting here. This is not a scene from history. This is not a scene from the Bible. It is Manet's and Baudelaire's contemporary world. And that, in and of itself, is strikingly radical. That painting, again, under this French academic system, there was an active disinterest in modernity and the painting of modern life. That was just not something that was respectable or acceptable in any way to the French Academy. So the subject matter here is revolutionary, as is also, I think, Manet's effort to capture that idea of the fleeting and the transient. And you can see that he's endeavoring to do that in the technique and in the composition. So in the composition, it's not as carefully arranged as David's Oath of the Horatii, where we had the everything fit within its niche. There are no niches here. It's like we've stumbled upon this scene. There are figures cut off on the right and the left. You can see the gentleman on the far left of the scene. His body is almost cut in half, essentially. It's almost very haphazard. That we're stumbling upon this scene and we're observing it. Like we are a participant here, and nothing has been staged for us, as it were. And so you can see that some chairs in the foreground are empty. There's an umbrella or a parasol just laying on the ground with the children playing. Some sections of the canvas, this is so interesting, some sections of the canvas look almost unfinished, or like it's almost not quite filled in. So you can see the section just to the right of the two figures in the yellow dress. It's there's kind of almost just chunks of gray, and it looks like the paint has almost been kind of furiously rubbed out. And some faces we can see are more highly finished than others. Some are almost just daubs of paint, like they look like studies almost. Yes, you can see the figure, the male figure here with the top hat. That top hat and his facial features are very finished, but then look immediately to the right. The facial features of that grouping of people are just, it's reduced to kind of its barest essentials, and again look like almost just kind of just sections of color here. And then the figure of the face on the far left, center left, again looks like it's almost been scrubbed away or rubbed out. Notice too the detailing on the trees and the foliage, very, very quickly rendered. We are not looking at a finished surface here. We could very much see evidence of brushstrokes, very much evidence of the paint layered on the canvas. And I think what Manet is trying to capture here is that our experience, like if we were passing through the Tuileries, if we were walking amongst this crowd of people, our mind and our eyes can only absorb so much information, and that we would notice some things more than others, so that our eyes might alight on the two women in the yellow dress, or our eyes might land on the children with the red sash playing in the dirt, or the gentleman in the top hat. We would remember certain elements, but not everything. Like our mind can't capture the world as efficiently as, say, a camera can. And cameras were being developed at this time. So that image I showed you of that photograph portrait of Manet that was by his photographer friend Nadar. And so there are photographers capturing the city in minute detail. And so artists like Manet don't necessarily have to capture every single detail any longer of a scene. It's more about the evocation of a sensation, or that idea that there are some elements that are fleeting that we'll never be able to capture with our eyes or with our mind. And so it's like if we saw a scene and then we looked away and then we had to paint it, or we had to describe it or remember it. There'd be vast sections that are just kind of grayed out, hazy smudges, whereas other bits would be much clearer in our minds. And I think that's probably what he's trying to get at, that sensation of the fleeting and the transient. And as I mentioned, this period also was the time of the great time of the French art critic. They were not impressed whatsoever with this exhibition by Manet at the Galerie Martinet, and especially with this painting. And this is a critic named Ernst Chesneau, and he acknowledges that there is a certain amount of youthful daring and energy in this artist, but he still lacks much to justify his audacity. But he may yet triumph over ignorance to become a fine painter. So that sense too that Chesneau is kind of just touching on, that something feels unfinished about this canvas. Another critic put it a little more forcefully. He said it was like Goya gone native. And the Count Nievkerk himself, this is in referring to the realist, not directly the music in the Tuileries. He was talking about Courbet and Manet and kind of that avant-garde gang. They said this is the painting, so these realist paintings, of democrats, he sniffs, of men who don't change their underwear. And so there we have it. Manet's painting, if you can compare, keep David's Oath of the Horatio in mind when you're looking at Manet's work, and to understand, like I said, the consternation that it caused in the composition, the subject matter, the rejection of this supreme importance of history and religious painting in favor of the study of modernity, in the technique itself, in the way that Manet is applying the paint. Everything is upending French tradition here, and Manet continues to do that with subsequent paintings.